Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. No one dared to bid for the wild alien girl, except for one human soldier. The auction hall smelled of metal and fear. It was built like a theater, rows of seats rising in a curve, spotlights glaring down on the platform where the girl stood shackled. Her wrists were bound in glimmering cuffs that hummed with energy, her ankles locked into the floor with clamps that pulsed red. She was motionless, but her eyes moved like knives across the crowd, cutting through silk robes, polished uniforms, and jeweled masks. A ripple of unease spread through the bidders each time her golden gaze lingered. She looked human, almost. That was what unsettled everyone the most. She had the same limbs, the same shape, the same presence. But her ears betrayed her, long, elegant, rising to points that flicked with every whisper. Those ears, combined with her eyes, made her look less like a captive and more like a predator waiting for someone to make the wrong move. The auctioneer's voice cracked as he introduced her, calling her specimen. Prize. Treasure of the outer systems. He listed her strength, her rumored abilities, the destruction she'd caused before her capture. The audience shifted in their seats, some leaning forward with greed, others leaning back with dread. The alien girl growled once, low and deep, and the sound was enough to silence the room. The bidding began anyway. Numbers rose, but voices shook. A merchant tried and faltered halfway through a number, coughing as though suddenly remembering an urgent appointment. A governor raised his hand, then snatched it back when the girl bared her teeth at him. The auctioneer stammered, sweat glistening on his forehead, as the momentum of the sale collapsed into hesitation. Then, from the back row, a voice cut through. It was steady, casual, almost bored. I'll take her. Heads turned. Gasps rippled. The soldier stood in plain armor that had seen better days, scratches running across the plates like badges of long-forgotten battles. His face was unshaven, his expression unreadable, but his hand was raised without hesitation. Unlike the others, he didn't look afraid. If anything, he looked like a man claiming an old tool from a pawnshop. The alien girl's eyes locked onto him. Her fury wavered, just for a breath. Confusion crept in, as though she couldn't understand why this one human wasn't quivering like the rest. The auctioneer blinked rapidly, searching for another bidder, but the hall was silent. Even those who might have dared were unwilling to challenge the strange certainty in the soldier's stance. Sold, the auctioneer squeaked. The mallet fell like an afterthought. The girl lunged as the guards tried to move her, teeth bared, chains snapping taut. She spat words in her own tongue, sharp syllables that needed no translation to drip with contempt. The soldier stepped forward, meeting her gaze, without flinching. You're mine now, he said firmly. Her lips curled, ready to snarl again. Yet something in his tone stopped her. It wasn't ownership, not the way the others had looked at her. It was stubbornness, certainty, maybe even a joke she hadn't understood. Fear flickered in her eyes, but only for a heartbeat, quickly replaced with something else, something dangerously close to curiosity. They led her out under heavy guard, chains rattling with every step. She resisted at every opportunity, jerking her arms, snapping her ears back, baring her teeth at anyone who touched her. The soldier walked behind, hands in his pockets, humming a tune that didn't fit the grim silence of the procession. When she spun on him suddenly, nearly knocking over two guards, he only grinned. Keep it up, he said lightly. By the time we get to the ship, they'll think I adopted a particularly angry space cat. The guards tried not to laugh, failing miserably. The alien girl hissed and spat another insult, and the soldier tilted his head. Did she just call me moldy bread? He asked the nearest guard. The guard shrugged nervously. I think so. Or possibly decomposed fungus? Ah, so she likes me already, the soldier said, as though pleased. The girl blinked, caught off guard by the absurdity of the exchange. For once, she didn't growl. Instead, her ears twitched as though trying to decide whether to flatten in fury or rise in confusion. They boarded the shuttle, a vessel that groaned as though tired of its own engines. Inside, the air smelled faintly of recycled coffee and engine coolant. The alien girl was shoved into a seat, her cuffs locking automatically into the restraints. The soldier sat across from her, leaning back, arms folded. She glared at him, eyes like burning coals. "Go ahead," he said, unfazed. "Keep glaring. You'll burn a hole in my armor and save me the trouble of polishing it." She snarled, and the ship's translation system, eager to be helpful, chimed in. "Uncivilized worm," it announced politely. The soldier snorted. "See, now we're bonding." The alien's ears twitched again, betraying a flicker of bewilderment, before she masked it with another hiss. As the shuttle lifted off, engines roaring, the crowd below shrank into a blur of lights. The auction was over, but something far stranger had begun. A soldier with nothing but stubbornness had claimed the most feared girl in the galaxy, and the galaxy itself seemed to be holding its breath, waiting to see what would come of it. The shuttle rattled as it broke through the upper atmosphere, engines howling in protest. Loose screws shivered in their sockets, and the overhead lights flickered like a nervous gambler. The alien girl sat bound in her restraints, ears twitching at every groan of the ship's hull, eyes fixed on the soldier across from her. He seemed perfectly at ease, boots stretched out, helmet resting beside him like an old friend. "First time flying in a military junker?" he asked casually. She hissed something sharp and contemptuous. The ship's translator chimed cheerfully. "I hope this rust bucket disintegrates and you with it." He grinned. "Yeah, fair. Honestly, odds are 50-50 on that one." Her golden eyes narrowed. She couldn't decide if he was mocking her or if humans were simply insane enough to joke about dying mid-flight. She tried pulling against the cuffs again, the restraints glowing red as they resisted her strength. Sparks danced faintly where her skin touched the metal. She growled in frustration. "Careful," the soldier said. "Those cuffs cost more than this entire ship. If you break them, I'll have to explain it in paperwork. And trust me, there's no torture in the galaxy worse than military forms." The AI translated her next insult with smug efficiency. "May your tongue rot and fall out." He tapped his jaw thoughtfully. Tempting offer, but then how would I annoy you? She blinked at him, ears flicking forward in bafflement. His tone carried no fear, no malice, only an irritating calmness. He wasn't like the bidders in the hall, who had looked at her with hunger or terror. He looked at her the way one might look at an unpredictable storm, something to prepare for, but not something to cower from. The shuttle lurched violently, slamming both of them sideways. The alien snarled as the restraints cut into her wrists. The soldier braced with one arm, the other fumbling for a switch on the console beside him. The ship's voice, far too cheerful for the circumstances, announced, "Warning, turbulence, possible death imminent. Please enjoy your flight." The soldier groaned. "Ignore her. She's been dramatic since the last software update." The girl tilted her head. For the first time, curiosity flickered brighter than rage. She muttered a sharp question in her own tongue. The translator hummed, "Why are you not afraid of me?" The soldier scratched at his jaw. "Afraid? Of you? Nah, you haven't bitten me yet. That's usually when I start worrying." Her ears twitched rapidly. An involuntary reaction she quickly tried to mask with another glare. He didn't miss it. "I'll take that as progress," he said. Hours stretched as stars bled across the viewport. The girl tested her chains less often now, though her gaze never left him. He passed the time by peeling a ration bar from its wrapper and chewing loudly. When she wrinkled her nose, he held it up. "Want some? Tastes like compressed cardboard dipped in despair." She spat a refusal. The translator announced, "I would rather swallow molten metal." "Fair choice," he admitted, tossing the wrapper aside. Silence returned, but it was different this time. Less hostile, more tense with possibility. When the shuttle finally landed at the frontier outpost, the hangar doors opened with a groan. Soldiers and mechanics crowded around, their eyes widening as the alien girl was let out. Whispers spread fast, rumors of the auction, of the soldier's reckless bid, of the creature who had once reduced an entire battalion to ashes. Bets were already being made. The soldier walked at her side, hands shoved in his pockets, looking more like someone escorting a stubborn pet than a deadly prisoner. When a mechanic muttered too loudly about how long it would take before she snapped his neck, the soldier shot back. "Put me down for 3 weeks." She looks like the patient type. The alien girl froze, staring at him as though unsure whether to snarl or laugh. For the first time, her golden eyes softened, just slightly. Inside the barracks, the restraints released her into a secure chamber. She stood tall, stretching her arms, rolling her shoulders. The soldier leaned against the wall, watching. "You're free to move around in here," he said. "Don't try blasting your way out. The walls are lined with null fields. You just end up giving yourself a migraine." She muttered something bitter. The translator purred. "You are a fool." He smirked. "Probably. But I'm your fool now." She tilted her head, ears flicking again, unable to disguise her confusion. This human wasn't what she expected. He didn't treat her as a weapon or a trophy. He treated her like herself, even if she snarled and spat and threatened to tear him apart. As the soldier turned to leave, she called after him in a softer voice. The translator hesitated before rendering it. "Why did you claim me?" He paused at the door, shoulders rising and falling in a half-shrug. "Because no one else dared." The door slid shut, leaving her alone with her thoughts. For the first time since her capture, her growl faded. She stood in silence, ears flicking to the hum of the null fields, golden eyes burning with a new question. The frontier outpost was not a place known for peace. Alarms blared at odd hours, supply ships came and went with their cargo holds half broken, and the smell of fried circuitry lingered in the air like an unwelcome guest. The alien girl discovered this quickly, standing at the viewport of her chamber, ears twitching as she listened to the distant clang of machinery. She still wore the collar, its faint glow a reminder of her captivity. Though the soldier had kept his word, inside this room, she was unchained. He arrived the next morning carrying a tray. Steam rose from 2 mugs, and a lopsided grin stretched across his face. "Breakfast," he announced. "1 cup of military sludge for me, 1 for you. Careful, it's hot enough to dissolve steel." She raised an eyebrow and muttered something sharp. The translator chimed. "I would sooner drink engine oil." "Perfect," he said, setting the mug down. "This is basically that, but with extra bitterness." She sniffed at it cautiously, ears twitching in distaste. Still she sipped. The moment the liquid touched her tongue, her eyes widened, and she coughed violently, slamming the mug back on the tray. "I warned you," he said, patting her shoulder as though she were a comrade who'd just lost a bet. "You'll get used to it after about 5 years." She glared at him, muttering a string of insults that the translator softened into. "You are a ridiculous man with no taste." "Thank you," he said warmly. "Best compliment I've had in months." Despite herself, her lips twitched. Not a smile, but dangerously close. The days stretched into an odd rhythm. Guards whispered outside her chamber, waiting for the moment she'd break free and tear the place apart. But instead of plotting escape, she spent more time watching the soldier. He returned daily, sometimes with food, sometimes with datapads full of military reports he pretended to read, and sometimes with nothing at all but jokes. One afternoon, he brought a battered deck of holocards. They glowed faintly, projecting images of ships, weapons, and strange alien creatures. "Game time," he said, spreading them on the floor. She frowned. "This is foolish." The translator rendered her words politely. "I do not waste time on child's play." He ignored it, explaining the rules with the seriousness of a commander briefing his squad. She listened, unimpressed, until she realized he was terrible at his own game. He miscounted points, dropped cards, and groaned dramatically with every loss. By the 3rd round, she leaned forward, golden eyes bright, ears flicking in amusement. When she beat him soundly, she didn't gloat. She simply sat taller, silent victory blazing in her gaze. He groaned, flopping back against the wall. "I let you win." The translator caught her soft murmur. "Liar." He chuckled. "Yeah, all right. You're terrifyingly good at this." Something shifted between them then. The hostility that had once filled every glance softened into wary companionship. She still reminded him daily that she was no one's property, but her words carried less venom, more testing curiosity. He teased her relentlessly, comparing her ears to antennae, asking if they could pick up pirate radio stations. She swatted at him once, narrowly missing, but her laugh, half growl, half surprise, echoed in the chamber like a new language. Yet shadows lingered. One night, while the outpost lay restless under a starless sky, alarms shattered the uneasy calm. Red lights flared through the corridors, and a mechanical voice blared. Breach detected. Hostile approach. The soldier burst into her chamber, helmet clipped under his arm. "We've got company," he said, voice grim but steady. She tilted her head, ears twitching toward the sound of distant explosions. "Who?" "Mercenaries. The kind who don't ask questions before shooting." He tossed her a small device. "Stay here. Don't try anything stupid." She caught it, eyes narrowing. "You cannot fight them alone." He grinned, strapping on his helmet. "I can definitely try. Besides, you'll just slow me down with all the glaring." Her response was sharp, but the translator softened it into, "Do not die, fool." He laughed once and ran out, boots pounding the corridor. Left alone, she stared at the device in her hands. It was a security override, crude but functional. One tap and her door would unlock. The soldier had either trusted her more than he should, or he was the kind of man who didn't care if trust got him killed. The walls shook as another blast rocked the outpost. Her golden eyes burned, torn between freedom and something she hadn't expected, the urge to fight beside him. Her ears twitched, picking up the distant echo of his voice, shouting orders through the chaos. For the first time, she hesitated. Blaster fire shook the corridors, smoke curling in the stale air. The alien girl paced inside her chamber, the override device clutched tight in her hand. Her instinct screamed to run, to break free, to vanish into the stars. Yet she could hear his voice echoing down the hall, shouting at soldiers, barking orders, his tone annoyingly calm even in the middle of chaos. Her ears twitched, catching the sound of explosions, the clatter of boots, the unshakable steadiness of him telling someone to duck now, or you'll lose your head. She pressed the override. The door slid open with a hiss. Guards were gone, drawn into the battle. She stepped into the hall, the red emergency lights painting her golden eyes brighter than fire. The first mercenary she encountered didn't even have time to shout. Energy flared from her hands, white-hot and violent, slamming into him and bending his rifle into a molten arc. He dropped with a scream, rolling across the floor. She tilted her head, unimpressed. Another appeared, and she hissed a warning. He fired. She raised her palm, the bolt dissolving in midair as though swallowed by nothing. She grinned then, the first true grin since her capture. She was not helpless anymore. The soldier rounded the corner, helmet cracked, armor scorched. His eyes widened when he saw her free, power flaring around her like a storm. "Well," he said between coughs, "so much for me being the hero of the day." She smirked, energy crackling at her fingertips. "You were losing." The translator rendered it far too politely. "You appeared to be struggling." "Thanks for the encouragement," he muttered, firing his rifle past her shoulder. A mercenary yelped and collapsed behind her. "Nice teamwork, by the way." She moved with him down the hall, her power weaving through the chaos, his blaster precise and relentless. Between shouts and gunfire, he still found room for jokes. "Careful with those fire tricks. You're making my rifle jealous." She rolled her eyes, unleashing a wave of energy that flipped a mercenary squad into a wall. "Your rifle is small," the translator proudly announced. "Your weapon lacks stature." "Now that's just cruel," he said, mock-wounded. The fight raged toward the hangar, where mercenaries poured in through breached walls. Sparks rained from collapsing supports. Ships groaned as alarms shrieked. The alien girl raised both arms, unleashing a surge that bent steel beams, sealing part of the breach in molten wreckage. Soldiers cheered, some in awe, others in terror. One muttered, "She's going to burn us all alive." The soldier shot him a glare. "She's saving your hide. Try a thank you instead." The girl caught the words, ears flicking. Something softened in her gaze as she turned her fury on another squad, scattering them like leaves in a storm. When the last mercenary fell, silence followed. Smoke curled above the wreckage, soldiers catching their breath, too stunned to speak. The alien girl stood at the center, her cuffs shattered, collar glowing faintly, but useless now. Energy still shimmered around her fingers. The soldier approached carefully, rifle lowered. "You all right?" She looked at him, golden eyes bright, chest rising and falling. Slowly, deliberately, she nodded. He let out a long breath, helmet tucked under his arm. "Good. Because I'm definitely not. I think I've got a cracked rib. Maybe two. Possibly my entire skeleton." Her lips curved into something between a smirk and a smile. "You are weak." The translator softened it. "You may require medical attention." "Close enough," he said. The base commander stormed into the hangar then, his uniform singed, his face twisted with both fury and fear. "What is this?" he demanded, pointing at her. "You unleashed her. You." The soldier cut him off with a weary sigh. "Unleashed? Commander, she unleashed herself. And if she hadn't, we'd all be vapor by now. So maybe skip the lecture and try gratitude." The commander's jaw worked furiously, but before he could reply, the alien girl stepped forward. Her voice carried sharp authority, every word ringing like a blade. The translator spoke over her. "Without me, you would be corpses. I owe you nothing. But him." She nodded toward the soldier. "He did not run. He stood. That matters." The commander swallowed hard, silenced. The soldier glanced at her, surprised. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me. Usually, people just call me stubborn." She tilted her head, ears twitching. "You are stubborn, but not foolish." The translator announced proudly. "You are irritating but acceptable." He laughed, shaking his head. "I'll take it." As the soldiers began clearing debris, whispers spread quickly. Some saw her as a savior, others as a threat waiting to explode. But one thing was certain. She was no longer a prisoner. She walked freely now, golden eyes alight, ears catching every word, every breath of the galaxy around her. When the soldier limped toward the med bay, she followed without being asked. He glanced back, half grinning despite the blood on his face. "Careful. Stick too close, and people might think we're friends." She answered with the faintest curve of her lips. "We are not friends." The translator betrayed her, however, declaring, "Companions, perhaps." He chuckled. "Good enough for me." And for the first time, she didn't correct it. The outpost never felt the same after the attack. Repairs stretched on for weeks, sparks from welding torches lighting the hangars, new plating hammered into place over old wounds. The alien girl no longer stayed locked in her chamber. She walked the corridors freely now, ears flicking at the whispers that followed her. Some soldiers gave her a wide berth, others stared in awe, a few dared to nod respectfully. She ignored most of it, except when someone muttered "monster." Then her eyes would flash, and they'd suddenly remember urgent business elsewhere. The soldier returned to duty with his ribs patched and his pride mostly intact. He joked that the medics had threatened to weld him into a full-body cast, just to keep him from walking around too soon. He insisted he was fine, though every time he bent down to pick up a drop ration bar, he winced and muttered about the cruelty of gravity. Their strange partnership became routine. He showed her the ridiculous inefficiencies of human military life. Forms to requisition ammo, forms to replace a broken chair, forms to file complaints about the forms. She listened with mock disdain, but sometimes caught herself laughing despite her best efforts. In return, she revealed fragments of her own past, half-glimpses of battles fought under different stars, of betrayal by those who once called her comrade, of powers that had marked her as both weapon and outcast. One evening, while they sat outside the barracks watching shuttles streak into orbit, she asked, "Why did you not fear me?" He leaned back, chewing the last of a ration bar. "Because fear makes people stupid, and I've always preferred being stubborn over stupid." The translator added, "Because you looked lonely." He blinked. "That's not what I said." She tilted her head, studying him. "Perhaps it is what you meant." He tried to argue, but stopped when he saw the look in her eyes, a mix of sharpness and something softer. He coughed into his fist. "Damn translator." Another week passed before orders came from high command. The alien girl was to be transferred to central authorities for evaluation. Everyone knew what that meant. Experimentation, containment, or worse. The commander delivered the news stiffly, avoiding her eyes. The soldier didn't hesitate. No. The room froze. She's not a weapon, he said firmly. She saved this outpost when no one else could. If you send her off, you'll never see her again, except maybe on the wrong side of a battlefield. The commander bristled. This is not your choice. The alien girl's voice cut through like a blade. It is mine. Every head turned. She stood tall, ears forward, golden eyes burning. I am not property. Not yours, not theirs. She looked at the soldier. Not even his. I choose. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Finally, the commander gave a curt nod and left, muttering about reports above his pay grade. When the door slid shut, the soldier exhaled. Well, that went better than I expected. I thought he'd start throwing chairs. She smirked faintly. Perhaps I should have encouraged it. Don't tempt me, he said, grinning. The decision was made. She would not be transferred. She would leave with him, not as prisoner and captor, but as something else entirely. On the day of departure, the soldiers gathered at the hangar to watch. Some saluted her, others stayed silent, but no one dared challenge her. She boarded the shuttle beside the soldier, the collar gone, the chains a memory. As the engines roared to life, he strapped into the pilot's seat, muttering about how the controls were older than his grandmother. She sat beside him, watching stars flicker to life through the viewport. Where will we go? She asked. Anywhere, he said, flipping switches with reckless confidence. Everywhere. Somewhere that doesn't require forms in triplicate. The translator hummed and added, somewhere we can both be free. She glanced at him, ears twitching. That is what you meant. He groaned. I really hate this translator. But she was smiling now, truly smiling, golden eyes bright with something new. Hope. The shuttle lifted from the hangar, engines rumbling, breaking free of the outpost that had been cage, battlefield, and turning point. Stars spread before them, infinite and untamed. She leaned back, finally at ease, and said, You are still a fool. The translator, perhaps out of mercy, translated softly, But you are my fool. He chuckled, shaking his head. I'll take it. Together, they vanished into the vastness of space, no longer bound by chains or orders, but by a choice freely made. And for the first time since she had been dragged into captivity, the wild alien girl felt free. The end.